This is the first video in a series meant to be a sort of self-documentation of my world building. Right now I'm not going to go over any geography, but instead look at the development of phonetics in my own constructed languages. I feel as though in order to do this properly, however, we must first look at one of my favorite inventions of the modern era, the IPA, or the International Phonetic Alphabet. So, the year is 1886. Linguistics was, and will continue to be, a rising field of study even back then, with the 19th century bringing Europeans into contact with many interesting groups of people. There was, however, a problem in communicating the phonetics of studied language. That is to say, when linguists were describing the phonology in a given language, there was no standard way to describe a sound in print. You need to write the sounds on paper after all, so this would force them to use some ugly comparisons. Take this page, for example, from an outline by one Joseph Bosworth, The Essentials of Anglo-Saxon Grammar, a language which we know now as Old English. He's describing vowel sounds by comparing them to modern English phonology to get the point across. Let's look. Regular A is the short sound in can, man, span, and hand. Below that, an acutely accented A is like the long O sound in pot and top. In Old English, words like bon, hua, ok, brad, da, fa, and wa. Alright, this isn't so bad. I mean, a little exhaustive, but at least anyone reading can get the point, right? You can probably guess this already. It's not that easy. See, even looking past how inconvenient all this writing was, Bosworth was English, like, from England, and he spoke with an English accent, too. This means that with my accent, which is approximately General American, I'm not at all saying these vowel sounds as he was writing them. Whereas what he wrote down was, in his head, unmistakably said like con and man, or pot and top. I'm saying it like can, man, pot, and top. Keep in mind that I am definitely not a British accent coach, because that accent was almost definitely garbage. But it doesn't take a genius to tell you that different people speak differently. So, we had potential for phonetic miscommunication. Who would come in to save us from the fire and brimstone of orthographic anarchy? Well, a group of British and French teachers, led by Paul Passy, convened in Paris in 1886 to create the very first IPA, a system wherein every sound that could come out of the human mouth that might be used in a language is given exactly one symbol so that there could be no confusion. And so, this historic gathering of the world's most ingenious school teachers and a few linguists it was pretty awful actually. They had a handful of characters to represent the sounds from English, French, and German, and all other languages could pretty much just sit in the waiting room. I'd go over the chart they had back then, but for some ungodly reason, they had a separate chart for each language, defeating the point of the whole exercise. Hindsight 2020, I guess, guys. Long story short, we now have the significantly less useless IPA symbol set, revised as of 2018, laid out in an intuitive and well-documented PDF. Right now we'll concern ourselves with the consonant table. Something great about the modern IPA charts for both consonants and vowels is that they are organized not alphabetically, however that would work with something as extensive as this, but instead in a way that gives its readers some clues about how to make the sound. For instance, in the far left column are bilabial consonants, those where the sound is articulated using just your lips and nothing else. These sounds include pa, ba, ma, and br. Wait, br? Yes, you can roll your B's just as you can roll your R's. You've probably done it before, and it's used in a few obscure languages. It's called the bilabial trill. Anyways, this trend goes further back towards the middle top of your mouth, back to the alveolar and the postalveolar consonants around this area, your alveolar ridge. This is the region of the mouth where we make the most sounds, one like t, d, n, r, th, z, and so on. This goes all the way back to your glottis, a muscle used to regulate airflow. Moving on, the vowel chart is even more intuitive. It's quite literally a diagram of where to place your tongue. Take E, for instance. Say it. E. Good. Now you look dumb. Your tongue is at the top of your mouth, as far forward as it can go without sticking out of it. Now go down to Ah. Ah. Your tongue is as far forward as it can go at that point, but now it's at the bottom. In addition, Pairs of vowels at the same point of articulation indicate whether your mouth is open or rounded. Back to ah again, you can say it with an open mouth ah, or with a round mouth oh. With that out of the way, I hope you understand a good bit of the jargon coming up. Now we can talk about the phonology of Proto-River Basin, or rather, the whole branch as it leads down to Continental Core Basin. So first, the phonology of Proto-River Basin. Here are the consonants. I'll review only the stuff that isn't immediately obvious. Outlined in red are the consonants where I've allowed ejective variation. We don't have this in English, but they do in Mayan languages, whereas we might call this region of Mexico the Yucatan Peninsula. The Chontal Maya call their land Yokotan. I got no tips for that pronunciation, just try. I also have the voiced uvular plosive, known best to us as the glug sound, where you go glug glug glug. Yeah, I'm not doing that again. This is the velar nasal, or the nga sound. We have this a lot in English, but often after vowels. I mean, it's in the name. You should be able to say this. Here are f and v, pronounced similarly to f and v, but without your teeth and lips touching. Just use both your lips. Here is to pronounce it. Just start holding an H sound, then bring your tongue up as though you're about to make an L sound instead. Here is sh as in mash and lash, and also zh as in measure or leisure. Here are h and h, neither of which are found in the English language, but they can be seen in the Scottish pronunciation of loch and the Spanish agua. Finally, we have r, the voiced uvular fricative, like the German R or the French R in some contexts. Oh, and that J at the bottom is a y sound. Here we have a slightly above average sized vowel inventory. From left to right and top to bottom it goes E, I, U, that upside down E referred to as the schwa is used a lot by us English speakers. E, A, and O. In addition, outlined in blue are vowels where I've allowed nasal variation, so that they can be voiced through the nose. E, U, E, A, and O. With that done, I'm not gonna go through every single phonetic shift on the way down to my target language, Continental Core Basin. That would just take so long. Just keep in mind that these changes took place over several centuries of fictional linguistic change. So while the shifts you're about to see from Proto-River Basin to Continental Core Basin are quite massive, it's not without reason. So firstly, adjectives, or rather the lack of them. In the transition, adjectives became labialized instead. And became and in the end, these sounds became distinct with no variation, just p, t, k, and w. Along with the adjective, was lost in the shift, as it was a sort of parallel G version to the adjective consonants. In addition, the voiced consonants z and zh were lost, whereas their voiceless friends s and sh remain. R was lost as well. The labiodental fricatives f and v shifted to th and th, but the bilabial fricatives f and v kept their place. The trilled r shifted to the approximant r, but the uvular r remains. Finally, hl split into the distinct phonemes l and h. As for vowels, we have a monumental reconstruction as to how they operate within the language. Firstly, our new vowel layout from left to right and top to bottom once more. I, e, u, o, a. Generally, you might notice that vowels trended upwards towards the top of the mouth. The biggest change, however, is that the language has made a shift from being a stressed language, like English, with the difference between present and present depending on where you stress the vowel sound, to being a tonal language with a set of 3 simple tones: the long, high, flat tone meh, the short, neutral, flat tone meh, and the short, rising, falling tone meh. This is what nasals transformed into. Every vowel in a word must have one of these 3 tones, the most common being the short neutral. Alright, that was my first video and I gotta admit, feels pretty fun. I don't know. Was a lot of fun. So next time I think I'll cover large-scale grammatical concepts like the difference between synthetic and analytic grammar and how it relates to word building, which we'll also get into in that video. After that, maybe a writing system? I don't know. But yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye.